it just happens when you least suspect it.
For that moment in time, it's almost like the world has stopped.
In that instant, your world is never going to be the same again.
The fact that I did it for a total stranger doesn't matter. I couldn't walk away from it.
I felt someone come like an angel that just appeared by my side.
There's so many reasons for me not to be there on that day, but I was there on that day.
It's probably the most difficult decision I've ever made in my life.
It was an impossible situation that we were in.
If we didn't do something, this guy was going to kill everybody, including us.
That was the moment when I knew that I was going to die.
That's a wonderful moment. Your faith in the human race is justified.
This was a life-changing moment. In the blink of an eye.
I knew I was in real trouble, the biggest trouble of my life.
Bank Holiday Monday, the Queen's Golden Jubilee. 50-year-old retired engineer Neville Powell is out for a drive with his partner, Gloria.
Normally when we go out, I'll say to Gloria, which way are we going, north or south? And she went, let's go to Rye. We drove down to Brighton and made our way along the coast through Eastbourne and eventually ended up in Rye. Everyone was in a good mood. It was just a really peaceful day. We had a little bite of fish and chips. I got the map out, we had a quick look. I said, we'll make our way back through the countryside rather than through the coast. We left Rye, I suppose, early afternoon. Fairly twisty road, opening up into long straights and then short twists. I'd call it a driver's road. Not too busy. We're poodling along 40, 45, and it was just a lovely day. I can't say anything other than that.
8 miles away, 50-year-old Peggy Langdown is enjoying the Jubilee festivities with her family.
Newington was having a Jubilee party on their village green. They've got a very nice village green there. We were just going to potter around and spend a bit of money on the stalls, doing what you do at a village fete. Peter had just finished his first year at university, so he'd come home for the summer break. So it was lovely to see him because this was the first time he had been away from home for any length of time. Peter's cousin Adam was the brother that Peter had never had. He'd have been 17 at the time. Peter said that he was going to take Adam over to Hawkhurst to get petrol for the car. And I think, he probably wanted to show Adam his new car. So we said, yes, sure, see you in half an hour. No reason to think that anything at all was going to happen and that what happened was going to be so completely and utterly devastating.
The motorcycle came out of nowhere, very fast. I had no knowledge of his approaching from behind. My actual feeling was, why do you need to go so fast? There was no point. Enjoy the day, or if you want to go fast on a motorbike, take it to a track. He went past me so fast I had to physically pull in, and I said he'll be on his backside round the bend. That whole thing did unsettle me, and it may have been a precursor to what happened next.
Peter was a typical teenager. He was going out into the world. He was this great adventure. He was going to go to university. He's always been a very outgoing, very friendly boy. He's got a smile that would break a million hearts. He was just full of life. He was very proud of his nice new to him car. It wasn't a new car. It's a 5-10 minute drive to Hawkhurst. You don't expect anything untoward to happen. He was 19 years old. Why would you think anything untoward was going to happen? The last possible thing that we would ever have imagined is what actually did happen to him.
At his home in Swansea, 32-year-old nurse Dan Ward is making the most of a day off work.
I spent the morning just finishing up decorating Lily's nursery. Of course, we didn't know she would be Lily then. A lot of stencils and stickers to go up. Our lives were about to change with a new baby, so obviously I wanted to make the most of it. My wife was in work, so I thought, right, I'm going fishing. It's been a long winter and spring, and I haven't been out on the kayak all winter. I'm going to go out and catch some early bass, hopefully. I got out my bait, checked my rods, my reels, all things like that. I get a bit seasick, so I always took a couple of tablets before I went out. That's a bit embarrassing, really. I looked at the weather and I used the Met Office and the BBC, and to be honest, it showed a little slight bit of wind, but nothing to worry about. Beth already knew that I was going fishing that day, so I didn't feel the need to text her. And then I headed off out, down to the beach to go fishing. I was expecting just to spend my day in complete relaxation, doing the thing that I love doing. Yeah, that didn't happen. Llangennith Beach, the beach I was on, it's quite a famous beach, really. It's the most isolated beach you could imagine, really. No sign of civilization whatsoever. My kayak was about 9 feet long, probably weighed not far off what I weigh, so dragging across the sand took a bit of energy. It was a couple of inches wider than average fishing kayaks, and apparently make it much easier to get back on if you do turn over. Maybe a bit slower, but at least it's safe. It was a bit of an overcast day as I went into the sea. A slight breeze. It wasn't choppy or in any way dangerous. I wasn't intimidated at all by the sea in that condition. There was nothing really just to give me any impression that the sea would misbehave. Once I got through the breakers, though, it was lovely. Such a beautiful place. You could feel the wind in your face. The last time that wind blew on somebody, it was in Ireland. That's lovely fresh air. It's just fantastic. It makes you feel really alive. I was in a really happy place in my life, you know, really, really excited. Life was great. As I was sitting there taking in the scenery, there was something really subtle. Something that I felt in my bones almost. A sense of suddenly things aren't quite right here. It was as if the weather wasn't my friend anymore. What I hadn't realised is that for some of that time that I'd been happily paddling out and happily admiring the view, a current had been taking me probably faster than I could have paddled. When I looked at the shore, the people who were walking their dogs on the shore were like specks. I was much further out than I realised. I only had a few moments after that. I still don't know what did it. Without any warning whatsoever, I was keeling over to one side in a way that I knew, instantly, I knew I was ending up in the water. I was completely flipped upside down, went headfirst into the water. When I got to the surface, I felt a terrific thud. It was the kayak landing on my head. And in that one moment, everything changed.
"50-year-old retired engineer Neville and his partner Gloria are on their way home after a drive along the south coast.
You couldn't have wished for a nicer day, pottering along about 100 miles away from home. We came around a bend in the road which opened up onto a fairly short straight. Suddenly, from being a beautiful, languid, placid day, life had changed. There in the middle of the road was a car engine. and a piece of suspension, a wheel and a suspension leg. What had happened? It was so quiet. No other traffic on the road on what had basically been a busy day. Nothing. So, where is everybody? What's happening? Why is it like this? Then I saw a car on the near side of the road, but almost at a right angle to the road. It was kind of unreal. I do believe that in your life you come to a junction every day. You don't know whether you're going to go left or right. You don't know what's going to happen next. I just knew that I couldn't walk away from it. Sometimes it's automatic. It's a chemical reaction. You get on and do it. I said to Gloria, stay in the car. And she said, be careful. She'd always saying, be careful since I had my stroke. I started running towards the car, but I doubled back to get my phone because instantly it was a much bigger situation than I thought it might have been.
Yeah, accident.
I do remember speaking to an operator and she said, our ambulances are at an incident in Ashford, there's a procession or something. I said, well, this isn't an incident, this is serious. As I approached, the first thing you notice is that the engine has physically been torn out of the car, thrown out of the car, like a stone when you're throwing it into the sea. I fully expected when I got there to find that the occupants of the car would have been out of it, or dead. But there was two lads sitting in the car talking to each other, as if nothing had happened. It all took a little while to sink in. You think, this can't be right. Why haven't they got out of the car? And then the driver said, what's this? Then I noticed that there were some marks on the road and in the ditch to the left that indicated that the car had travelled into the ditch, probably backwards. And there was a post and rail fence at the bottom of the ditch. One of the rails had snapped off with the impact of the vehicle and found its way through the rear window, which it must have smashed, and gone through the rear of the driver's seat and had come physically through the driver's back and out through his chest in that sort of area. He was absolutely impaled in the seat. If it had been a film set, you'd have thought this is a little bit macabre, but this was real life. The passenger didn't appear to be physically damaged. The driver, however, was in serious trouble. When I'd worked offshore previously, you go through medical courses and emergency courses and fire drills, and the first thing they teach you is leave the people where they are. Let the professional services deal with it. That wasn't an option. There was absolutely no alternative but to get him out of the car because it was going to catch fire.
A mile off the Welsh coast, 32-year-old Dan Ward has been knocked out of his kayak into the freezing water. It's the coldest Easter in the UK for 50 years.
I became aware of just being in the sea bobbing around by myself, and the kayak drifted. The paddle was gone. I knew I needed to get back to the kayak as quickly as I could. So I trod water and swam my way over, and I grabbed it, and it was upside down. Get back on. That's the important thing, get back on. It's very difficult when you're in water. The only muscles you've got that you can use are your arms. And when you're on land, you've got something to push with your legs. I was essentially trying to do a pull-up in water. So it was difficult. There were big waves now, and every so often a wave would come and flip the kayak over. The sheer desperation of it clawing with my fingers to try and get into all the nooks and crannies of the kayak just to give me some kind of purchase so I could get back on. At one stage I got sort of on it. I was lying. I thought, I'm nearly there. And it flipped me again. It wasn't long before I realised I wouldn't be able to get back on. I had started to panic, and I was cold by then as well. Suddenly I realised the sea was really choppy, and I was in trouble, real trouble. As I was trying to get onto this kayak, of course it was a target for the waves, wasn't it? And it was drifting out. So actually staying with it, although it made me more visible, it was taking me further out to sea. So I thought, I'm going to have to choose. That way is the open sea, and that's where I'm going if I stay with the kayak. That way is the shore. Do you carry on doing this and end up in the middle of nowhere where nobody could possibly see you even with the binoculars? Or do you take a gamble, and it may be 100 to 1 chance, but go for it and try and get to shore? I decided to swim for shore. When I watched the kayak drift away, that's when I was scared. That's when I knew I was in real trouble, the biggest trouble of my life.
The car had started to burn. The wiring loom had set fire to some of the plastic trim. The fuel pipe is in the vicinity. We didn't know how much time we had. I didn't know how much time we could have taken. But certainly it was a petrol car. I know my cars, and they don't burn for very long before they explode with petrol around. I tried to get the driver's door open, but couldn't. It was jammed shut. I couldn't, in my heart of hearts, think about leaving the lads to burn in the car, which was what would have happened.
33-year-old insurance manager Tim Slater is the second man to arrive at the scene.
That day I was at a barbecue, probably 200 yards from the main road. I didn't actually hear it, but there were some people there who had a big bang, a loud bang. I just thought, well, I'll see what's going on. When I got to where the car was in the ditch, I initially froze. I was a little bit scared and thinking, what can I do here? We've got a car on fire, something I'd never seen before. But I could see someone outside of the car, so I felt that, you know, at least I could help. I ran round the front of the car to the passenger side.
Suddenly, another gentleman appeared at the passenger door. I didn't know who he was, but I think our eyes met and we suddenly realised that we'd have to work as a team to get the passenger out.
The passenger door was jammed, but it was stuck ajar, so I just thought, the fact that I play football and using my feet, my legs, I'll kick the door open. They were shouting, "Get us out of here, get us out of here."
Ran around the car as quickly as I can to assist him in getting the passenger out.
He was just guided gently away. It was like he just woke up from a dream, really, not knowing what had gone on.
Then we had the problem of getting the driver out. I just had to get the driver's door open. I remember sort of putting my body against it and really heaving on the door. Fortunately, it came open. I've never seen such sort of carnage instantly. The electrical wiring loom had melted and had caused a short circuit and had caused an electrical fire, which was burning the dash, the plastic, all the fibreboard hidden up under behind the dash. I know from experience the fuel delivery pipe, which is about 8 or 10 mil in diameter, is there somewhere. And most modern cars have a plastic fuel pipe instead of a metal pipe, and when that starts burning, it's a ticking time bomb, because the fuel obviously will ignite in the tank. It's like a fuse. When it's on fire, how long's the fuse? And when it goes, end of game, end of story.
On Llangennith Beach, 31-year-old DVLA employee Steve Lewis has been out surfing all morning.
I don't normally need a reason to go surfing, but my wife and I had just found out that we'd need fertility treatment to have a child. So I wanted to go. I needed it. It was kind of the perfect day in the sense that it was cold and windy and a bit miserable, which is kind of how I was feeling at the time. I'd have been in the sea for about 2 hours. By that stage, I decided I should get home really and get warm again. I was strolling up the beach and there was a lady on her own and she was kind of looking at me, so I straight away assumed she was going to say, "Oh, aren't you cold?" So I kind of made a beeline for her, thinking, I like to chat to people. So as I got to her then, I realised that she was kind of in a bit of a panic. She asked me if I had a phone. I said, I haven't got a phone, but there's a couple over there, they've got a phone. And I said, "Oh, is there anything I can do?" She pointed to the sea then, and she said she'd been watching a kayak for a number of minutes, and I think someone's in trouble, she said, in the sea. When I looked, I couldn't see the kayaker. All I could see was a shape in the water, really, about a mile away. But I knew that something was wrong, definitely. The only thought that went through my head was, if I was in trouble, I wouldn't want to be on my own. Just wanted to help, really, or see if I could help. Kind of a split-second decision, I guess. Before I knew it, I was running down the beach. All that was going through my mind is, man, I'm tired. I was pretty much gunning it from the time I got in the water. It was a really hard paddle, not in any particular direction. It got to a point where I just had no energy whatsoever. I didn't know where the kayak was because I couldn't see it. All I could see was waves. At that point, it was just such an urgency. I thought, what do I do now?
Dan Ward has been alone and drifting out to sea for more than an hour. The water temperature is 7 degrees Celsius.
My plan at this stage was I swim like I've never swum before. So I pointed my head at the shore, lay back, and did my very best backstroke. Just the legs, because the life jacket doesn't really let you move your arms enough. I even closed my eyes because I thought even looking takes some energy. I didn't think, even thinking takes some energy. Every ounce of my energy is going to my legs. I don't know how long I kicked for. I kicked and kicked and kicked, kicking for my life. After this long period, I stopped and I thought, I'd catch my breath. And I turned round and I was further out. What I hadn't realised is that while I was kicking, the tide was taking me out faster than I could get to shore. Never felt as alone as that before. When you're not just alone because there's no one there, you're alone because you may as well not even exist because no one knows you're there. I shouted so loud I could feel my throat hurting, but all I could hear was my own voice just bouncing back off the waves into my ears. A bit like shouting at a brick wall. I knew that nobody could come out. It was impossible. Nobody could come out this far, in this sea, and save me. That was the moment when I knew that I was going to die.
I was intensely aware that things were going from bad to worse all the time. The driver was absolutely impaled by this wooden stake. He was nailed to the seat. The only option was to try and tear the seat apart. The other chap, whose name I now know is Tim, he appeared at the passenger door again, and I said, I'm going to try and pull the seat apart. because we won't get this stake out, we'll kill him.
It was at that moment when there were flames in the footwell of the driver's side. We just had to do something immediately, so I got in the passenger seat.
I had to get my torso over Peter's right-hand shoulder, and my head was just behind his head, and I'm trying to physically pull this seat apart with Tim holding the piece of wood so that it didn't waggle and move.
I was conscious that if I twisted it, that it could cause serious damage, so I was thinking, wow, this is serious. I can't do anything here to cause any further damage. The thought of holding a post coming out of someone's shoulder makes me feel a little bit sick, actually, even saying it now.
I'd had a stroke a couple of years previously, so I was intensely aware that your heart rate goes up, your pulse goes up, the adrenaline goes up. This is not the right place to be. You don't want to be there, but what else can you do?
The situation was weirdly calm, actually. It was quite serene.
We were like in a different world. It's like you're on autopilot. You take every opportunity until the last one. I would have carried on until the last.
I don't think I knew how long I've been swimming. I can't really even now put into time. It just felt like forever, really. I was exhausted. It was hurting, and I still couldn't see the kayak. Everyone knows how deep is deep enough for them, do you know? And I felt I'm quite out of my depth. It's frightening in a sense because it felt far out. This was pushing myself past my comfort zone and hoping that there was someone there. Didn't even know that there was anyone in the water, really, but I assumed that there was someone in difficulty, and the fact that I'd got to this stage and still couldn't see them just made it a bit more urgent that I had to get there. I couldn't stop. Everyone just needs a hand to hold. You know, if you're in trouble, but someone's holding your hand, you feel a lot better. So that's kind of how I felt. I just thought, sorry. All of a sudden, I've seen the kayak then. Still no sign of anyone, just a kayak. Unlike a turned over kayak, which isn't nice really to see. It didn't seem to be drifting or anything like that as well, which was quite unnerving. It was just there, upside down in the water, and there was no one there.
I was struggling to get the seat torn apart. We were aware that the whole vehicle could just explode at any moment. It was a bomb waiting to go off. Then we had the problem of how to get this 4-foot piece of wood past the door pillar and out through the passenger door with Peter attached to it. I really didn't think we were going to get him out alive. Tim managed to manoeuvre the post as I'm trying to twist Peter round.
We asked the driver to shuffle across over to the passenger seat. I held the fence post in my arms. I was very careful to hold it level.
We got him into the passenger seat and he was now in a position with his legs on the driver's seat. I rushed round to the passenger side again. Tim physically took the stake and we literally frog marched him away.
that moment, the car blew up and just into total flames. Flames were just going very high.
Poof, like that, and it's black smoke, acrid, instantly. I remember Gloria shouting, "Are you all right? You all right?" I said, "Yes, I'm all right, we're all right." And then it went quiet.
I think then it dawned on me that I could have been in that car. I think that was the first time I thought, wow, that was, what have I been involved in?
That's quite heavy, that is. I must admit I took probably the second breath that I'd taken that day, with just a deep sigh of relief. But the job wasn't over. A lady appeared with a blanket from somewhere, from a house. We covered him over.
By this stage, there were a fair few spectators. Ambulances had turned up and the police were there as well.
That's good. Someone else. Someone to take control of it. But then, within a few minutes, Peter's phone rang.
It was 2 + 2 = 4 and I'm gonna die. It was that kind of certainty. There was no reason in the world to think that I had any chance of surviving. It was a very strange feeling, and it must be how someone feels when they're sentenced to death or something, that knowledge, that certainty that you're gonna die. I couldn't see any land. My whole field of vision was filled with sky. And I don't know whether it was because I was freezing cold, whether it was because I'd had a bang on the head, or whether I was just exhausted. But the whole sky was just like a kaleidoscope. Streaks of colour forming patterns and images, like a drop of oil in a puddle. There was a stage when I thought, I'm not very happy with not knowing how I'm going to die. Will it be drowning, or will it be freezing to death? The humane option might be to remove my life jacket and allow myself to drown. But then I heard music, and it was strange because I heard it, not in my head, I heard it with my ears, I heard it. It was real. With every big wave, it matched with the crescendo in the music, so when the music got louder, a big wave came over and crashed over me. All just married up into this bizarre, surreal, dreamlike experience. And once in a while I had to shout. Just a scream. Just a lipless scream. A real terror, Suddenly I heard a noise, like an animal noise, really. I couldn't see anything. But then, just at the edge of my vision, I could see a seal. But then I realised it was a human being. The last thing on earth I could ever have expected to see another human being out there.
That's the first time that I saw Dan, and I thought, this is the bit where we hug and, nice to meet you, and we'll just hang around here for a bit now and we'll be all right. But he was so scared. When I grabbed him, he was in pain for me touching him, and I thought, that's not right. I thought, this is bigger than what maybe I thought it was.
I couldn't understand how he knew I was where I was, why he was there. If anyone was going to save me, it should have been the Coast Guard. When you're in a situation like that, the last thing you think is that it's just going to be just an ordinary person. We were still a long way out. We still had the current to work against. And I still thought, I'm in real trouble here, and so is he.
It's been an hour since Peggy's son Peter left the fate in his car.
We were standing around with Joe and Fiona chatting. Anna, our daughter, Peter's sister, turned up with her then boyfriend Paul. She was in a sort of agitated state because she and Paul had been held up in traffic as they had to drive past what was evidently a very, very serious road accident. It was the sort of scene where they were convinced that nobody would get out alive. The car was in such a state. I don't know why, I just knew that it was Peter's car. So I grabbed my mobile and dialed Peter's number. When you make a phone call and you expect somebody you love more than anything else in the whole wide world to answer the phone, and somebody else answers it, and they tell you your son's been in a bit of an accident, your world changes. In that instant, your world is never going to be the same again. I have two halves to my life. I have the life before Peter's accident and the life after Peter's accident. They are completely different, completely separate lives, and there the twain shall meet.
Even though we were making some progress on the board, it was painfully slow. It still could have gone badly wrong even then. I was completely numb. I couldn't feel a thing in my fingers or my hands or any part of me, really. I couldn't feel my limbs, and so trying to cling onto that board was incredibly difficult, and every so often a wave would come and slosh over my face, and I just trying to keep myself breathing and keep myself awake. I thought, I need to at least get a message to Beth and to my wife.
I think he thought he was going to give up. And I thought, well, if you give up now, what happens then? He said he had a daughter on the way, and that was it then. I think the abuse kind of started then. I think I started really like, you're not giving up then. What do you mean? Because I think it hit home then, because we wanted a baby forever, me and George, and I couldn't understand why he was in the water in the first place. If you've got a baby on the way, what are you doing, you stupid man? For being in the water. It was crazy. I felt like I had to say to him, well, you ain't gonna die or anything, sort it out, you're not giving up. There's no way. I'm not gonna let you.
I don't remember exactly what it was he said, but I know that he was trying to keep me thinking positive. But my memory becomes really poor towards, as we get it closer to shore.
You eventually got into, the white water. You never purposely put yourself in that position in surfing to go over the falls and anything, but I knew in this scenario that that's the best place for us to be because we'll be pushed in and that's what we want.
I remember the feeling of the ground beneath my feet. It wasn't as if I was standing in the water. It was as if the seabed had come up and hit me. I'd forgotten how solid the land was.
A young surfer was running towards us, and that was the first time that I'd seen anyone since I'd started paddling out. The relief is unbelievable.
A jeep had just arrived on the beach as we came to shore. I think a couple of the other surfers helped me to get into this Coast Guard jeep.
I was worried that I wouldn't remember what he looked like because I hadn't really taken it in. I was literally that far away from his face 90% of the time since I got to him. And I didn't really know what he looked like. It was just the strangest feeling.
I knew I was safe, and I knew that by a miracle I'd won the lottery. The least likely possible thing had happened. I'd been saved.
I must have got about 3/4 of the way home and I just pulled over and cried, I think. It kind of sunk in then on the way home, and it was like, that's probably the bravest thing I've ever done. I just had a good old cry and then went home then.
At this point, the fire brigade managed to cut this post off him and were getting him into the ambulance. And that was the last I saw Peter for a long time. Yeah.
I just mingled back with the crowd, actually, the people I was with. I'd felt that it's like doing a job. I just didn't feel anything, to be honest.
As we got out of the car, your mind's in 1,000,001 places. You know, is your son going to be alive when you get there? Is Adam going to be all right? There was a police officer round the accident scene. All we can see is what was the remains, the shell. It didn't resemble anything that the car had been when Peter and Adam had left Newington. We explained that it was our children in that car. He told us they haven't been burnt and that they were taken to the Conquest Hospital. You're just praying and praying that they're going to be all right.
For a few moments I stood there, slightly bewildered. Had this happened? I couldn't do any more, so I went and sat in the car. Gloria kept asking me questions and I probably wasn't really hearing them. Difficult world to come out of. You think, wow, this is a different world. You know, I've stepped out of my safe cycle, my safe enclosure. I'm somewhere totally different now.
The thing that's really crazy is that your life can change at any given moment. It's not like the movies where there's some dramatic build-up to an event where your life changes. It just happens when you least suspect it. Had I done anything different during that day, it would have changed my entire life forever. We went around a corner and I can remember seeing a motorbike in front of us. It was a wide open straight bit of road, so I thought I could just quite easily drive around the bike and carry on going. As I went around the bike, I obviously went too wide and hit the curb on the other side of the road. From what I've been told, that's where it went wrong. I couldn't really emphasise enough how utterly surreal it is to go from being in this really happy, relaxing moment to this state of, you know, waking up terrified in pain and not knowing what's going on. Although they tried their best to keep my arm, what actually happened is I got something that's called compartment syndrome. So the only thing they could do was amputate just above my elbow.
As regards how the accident happens, I don't think anybody will ever really know. It's possible he clipped the curbstone and lost control of the car, but I don't think that's frightfully important. The boys are alive, that's the thing to hang on to.
I do often look back at my life. If I'm having a good moment, I think back to Neville and I think, wow, thanks Neville. Everything I've ever had is from that day onwards. It's because of you.
The fact that I did it for a total stranger doesn't matter. I'd have done it for anyone in a similar situation. I took, in my mind, hopefully what was a calculated risk. Fortunately, it worked out. If it hadn't, well, I wouldn't be here to tell this story.
They didn't just save Peter and Adam's life, they saved all of our lives. Because if our boys had died in that fire, I don't know where we'd be today, but we wouldn't be where we are. We'd be living a completely different life. They saved everybody that day.
I feel proud of the fact that I was involved in saving someone's life, and it gives me a sense of happiness, really, that they're still living today, and that I was involved in it.
Since this happened, I've become more aware of risk, in a good way. I've realised how much there is to lose.
Made me more focused on wanting to be a dad. And, you know, we're quite lucky now because I'm going to be a dad. A boy, as far as we know, there's no better ending, I think, really. It'll be good because he can look back at this and, you know, he'll be proud of me, hopefully.
I thought I understood how fragile and delicate life was because I was a nurse. But I didn't really. The slightest thing can turn your world upside down. The slightest thing can end your world. Gives you more of a reason to enjoy life now. I didn't know that that moment was coming. And most people won't know when that moment is coming.
I was terrified. Suddenly, we were involved in a tragedy.
We were going to hit oncoming traffic at 80 miles an hour.
It's hard to tell how fast cars are going, especially when you stand and watch them come towards you.
I've got to do something quick. The possibility of you dying is very high.
So I just shut my eyes, and that is the last thing I remember.
Well, stay with us for the very latest ITV news on the way next. And if you've missed any of the new series of Endeavour, well, it's now available for catch-up on the ITV Hub. And the hunt for some stolen property leads the ladies to some peculiar places when the new series of Birds of a Feather continues Thursday night at 8:30.